Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be doing a review of Sargent Art watercolor tubes. What compelled me to create this review was that I couldn't find any other reviews about this product on YouTube and any of the channels that I usually watch for watercolor painting and crafting. And I thought these paints were actually quite amazing given their price point, and I felt like I had to do a review about them. So I hope you enjoy this review. These watercolor paints, I purchased them in a store called Jack's Discount Store. This is in Midtown Manhattan. They're close to Penn Station actually and Herald Square, and I'm not sure if they have stores outside of New York City. And I don't usually go to that store very often, but I would happen to be around the area, and I wanted to look for some Christmas decorations because it's about Christmas time now, like affordable ones. And I ran into this, and I was very curious to see how they performed. They were only $3.99, which is an amazing price point for this much paint. Usually, watercolors that are in this price point are not that great. I wouldn't even recommend most of these type of watercolors for students. I've tried Artist Lofts, I've tried Wreaths, and they're just not, I wouldn't recommend them at all. They don't work very well. They're not very well pigmented. They have too much binder and they get muddy really quickly. But these, I found they were very bright, very vibrant. They mixed very well. They were very highly pigmented, and they performed quite amazingly given the price point. So I was compelled to just do this review so other people can see how these watercolors perform. So what we'll be doing today is I'll be showing you the packaging, the tubes, the colors. I'll be swatching out some of these colors in this chart that I created, and I'll be comparing them to other watercolors that I have. I actually have quite a large selection of watercolor paints. This being my first video, I do not have videos on other watercolor paints as of today, but I could in the future if you're interested in any. So I'll show you those comparisons later on, and I'll show you some small paintings that I made with them. All right, so this is the packaging. It's just a really thin box with a tray inside and the watercolors. It says it comes with 12 watercolors, ideal for fine art, paintings on canvas. I guess some people do watercolors on canvas. I personally don't, but that's interesting. Versatile and blendable, and excellent opacity, which I don't quite understand because watercolors are supposed to be transparent. So I would expect it to say excellent transparency, but when I swatched them out, I actually found that they are a bit opaque, but not more opaque than other watercolors that I have really. So they're quite right. If you thin them out with water, they're quite transparent. So I'm not sure why they put that there in the description, but so it comes with these type of tubes. They're 12 milliliter tubes, quite large tubes actually. Nicely packaged. The tubes look really nice and easy to read. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the camera here. It just says watercolor, the color name, the weight. They're actually non-toxic, so that's great. They're made in China, I think, but the company is in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. So that's great. I couldn't find any pigment information about these online because they are a cheap brand of watercolors, and usually these type of watercolors, they don't have pigment information. If you want student grade watercolors that have pigment information, you might want to go with watercolor like Winsor & Newton Cotmans or like Van Gogh watercolors or Lucas like student grade watercolors. So these are great for people that are starting out, that just want to play around with watercolors to see if they like them. because they do offer a lot of the right kind of mixing capabilities, and they do a lot of things that normal watercolors do. So I don't know, we don't know what the light fastness is on these. There's no information. I couldn't find anything online. So I wouldn't expect them to be very light fast, but they might be great to use in sketching, like sketchbooks where there won't be a lot of light kind of affecting the painting. I wouldn't use them for something that you might want to hang on the wall or sell, for example. But they are great to practice, to do sketching with, and just to like get, improve your skills. So what I did was I squeezed out these paints in a plate. I do have other types of watercolor palettes, but I find that porcelain plates or ceramic plates are great for just mixing and using as a palette. And some of these are dry already. I squeezed these out yesterday. What I found was that they're a little hard to dissolve once they're dry, but it's not terrible. It's not impossible, and it's totally doable. You just have to scrub them a little bit or spritz them with water. So I'm going to actually just spritz them a little bit with water to get them going. And I'm going to use this really cheap Crayola brush that I got at Michael's for like nothing. I got them for like $2, a set of 5 for $2.50 during Black Friday sale. And they're actually horrible for painting. So I was just curious because I love to try out cheap art supplies to see how they perform. And sometimes I'm delighted to find that they work great. Sometimes I'm not that delighted. So in this case, I wasn't that impressed by these Crayola brushes. There are different Crayola brushes that I do like, that I could do a review on in a separate video. But these are actually, I found that they're great for scrubbing paint off. So since these were dry and they might be hard to lift, this is great for just like scrubbing, so you don't damage your nice brushes. So that's what I've basically been using these for. So I'll be using this one for scrubbing and kind of getting the paint out. And I'll be using this Dr. George Kramer number 10 round brush. This is synthetic synthetic bristles. I got this at Kramer Pigment in Midtown Manhattan as well. Kramer Pigment is a German paint brand. They have only 2 stores. I believe they have one in Germany and one in New York. But they do sell online, so I will link to their website. I actually have their paints as well, and they're amazing. I think they're one of the best paints in the world. But we can do a separate video on that. If you like, let me know in the comments. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be swatching these out so you can see how they go down. And then we can compare them with other brands. So I created this swatch kind of card, more like a page, because this is the way I like to swatch my colors for now. I've been thinking about making other types of like more swatch cards, kind of like trading card size. So I actually bought like a little portfolio to start that, but I haven't started that yet. So I'm going to do it this way. So basically I put with a Sharpie, I made dark lines to see how transparent or opaque these are. This is the white. I'm sorry. This is my headphone cable there. It's actually quite opaque and quite nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some water in the bottom to see how it flows. It flows quite well and it's quite opaque. So that's great for a white. I don't use white a lot in paints, but for people who do, it's nice if it's opaque. So you can, kind of lay it on top of your paint once it's dry, when maybe you want to paint some snow or something like that. So that's actually good white paint. That was a lemon yellow. It's quite vibrant, quite transparent, and very nice color. Now I actually picked up the wrong color here, so I picked up the yellow ochre by mistake, so I'm just gonna swatch that out first. This is the yellow ochre, a bit more opaque, which is expected for yellow ochre. And this is the chrome yellow, which is also quite opaque, but again, chrome yellow, chrome red are usually type opaque colors. The next one is a vermilion, which is a warm red. One of the great things about this set is that it comes with a warm red, a cool red, a warm yellow, a cool yellow, and a warm blue. The problem is that the cool blue, which is supposed to be ultramarine in the set, if you look at the set, actually it says it has ultramarine. If you look at this paint tube right here, but actually this tube doesn't contain ultramarine at all. It turns out it contained dioxazine violet, or what it looks like to be something very similar to dioxazine violet. So I actually squeezed it out here in this in my palette. So this is supposed to be the ultramarine blue. And when I squeezed it out, this violet came out. So I was kind of surprised. And I wondered if that's why these paints were at a discount store. Maybe that's why they send them to Jack's. Jack's tends to be a store where you find like overstock items and discount items, like kind of like overstock.com, but an actual brick and mortar store. Or like Big Lots type of store. So maybe that's why they were in Jack's, because they made a boo-boo in the manufacturing process and they put the wrong paint inside the wrong tube. And that's why they're liquidating them. I don't know. God knows. But I'm assuming that was not supposed to be there. So we don't have a warm blue in this set, which is a shame. That's the only drawback I see from this set. But we can do a lot with a Prussian blue, actually. So it's not too bad. We can make it work. Actually, I'm running out of chrome green. And because this palette doesn't have, it's actually a plate and not a palette, the paints are kind of getting mixed up, kind of mixing when I don't want them to. So this is the chrome green. This is the Viridian. So Viridian, we'll compare them, but I don't know how I feel about this Viridian. I don't love this Viridian. It's a bit, I don't know, flat to me, but it could be useful, I guess, for certain types of paints. So we're almost there. Burnt sienna. The burnt sienna, I find it to be a little insipid. Don't love it a lot. It's usable. You can use it definitely as a burnt sienna. It's just not the prettiest burnt sienna. I most likely will be using only the primary colors in this palette to make mixes, so I will not be using the burnt sienna too much, probably. And that's the black, which is quite dark and quite lovely black, actually. So what I want to do now is just make some color mixes with the cool colors and the warm colors. In the case of blue, because we don't have, just squeezing out a little bit more lemon yellow here because I run out. Because we don't have a warm blue, I will be making both mixes with the Prussian blue, which is a bit of a cooler blue. So I'm going to do, this is going to be my cool yellow, which is my lemon yellow. And my cool red is going to be the carmine, which is right here. And my cool blue, or my blue, is going to be the Prussian blue because it's not really a cool blue, but I just want to see what that looks like. And my water is getting really dirty, so it's kind of affecting the color, how it's coming out. These are going to be my warm mixes, colors that I'm going to mix in the warm section. I'm going to use the chrome yellow and the vermilion. And again, my warm blue, or my only blue, the Prussian blue. And I'm just going to make some really basic mixes here. So I'm going to start with the cool mixes. This is my lemon yellow. It's a little bit contaminated. So I think I'm actually, because I have a very small water container, I'm going to change out the water container and with clean water and come back. Now this is great. I'm actually going to clean out this lemon yellow because it's contaminated with the blue, with the Prussian blue. The Prussian blue is quite staining, quite pigmented. So I picked that up before picking up the yellow, and it didn't quite clean out of my brush. So I'm just squeezing out a little bit more paint. This paint does go fast, I feel, if you compare it to some of the high-end, like artist quality watercolors. They last longer. So this one, obviously, but it's, I mean, it's $3.99, so you can always buy more. It's not a big deal, but okay. So this is the cool yellow. I'm going to mix this with the with the cool carmine, or cooler red, which is the carmine. And I think I probably need more yellow because it's too red. Okay, so we'll make, it makes this beautiful orange color. It's quite nice, actually. I'm gonna mix now the Prussian blue with this yellow. I'm gonna put it over here. This is a nice green. I'm gonna actually put a little bit more Prussian, and I'm gonna do a little bit darker green here, which is quite nice, actually. I don't know if you can see that. Quite nice, kind of like a almost turquoise emerald green. So that's that for the yellows. I'm gonna clean out this part of my palette. It's quite a small palette, so I didn't know what palette to use when I was doing this. So I'm actually gonna use my cheap Crayola brush to scrub out this red carmine, because it's quite hard to get once it's dry, like I mentioned. So that way I scrubbed it out and I can use it with my nice watercolor brush and I don't ruin my brush. So I'm gonna pick up some Prussian blue, and I'm gonna make this beautiful purple. Look at that deep, beautiful purple. That is gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous. I'm actually curious to see what it looks like with more red and less blue, like warmer purple, like violet or purple. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love it. It's like a pinky violet. That's really nice. Now I want to see what the next, kind of the tertiary colors, I guess, if you want to call them. I think the secondary, primary, secondary, and we'll do tertiary colors with like 3 color mixes and see what that looks like. So I'm kind of curious to see this purple. If I put a little bit of the yellow, do I get a nice gray? What do I get? Let's see. That's a nice gray. It's not bad. That'll be a nice neutral. And if I put a little bit more blue in there, I will get a bit of a more nice neutral gray. Oh, I got some bleeding from the other purple, but still it's a nice steely gray. It's quite clean. It's a 3-color mix and it's still very, very clean. That's really good for I mean, a $3.99 watercolor set. That's amazing. Like, that's really amazing. So I want to try out to see if I can mix some more kind of earthy tones. So maybe I'm gonna clean out my palette and try out the lemon yellow. I'm running out of Prussian blue, so I'm gonna just squeeze more of that out here. So I'm gonna try a little bit of Prussian blue. This is the green. Sorry, I was gonna start out with orange, but whatever. It's what it is. And this red. So this makes kind of a deeper red, purpley color. Not bad. Let's see with a little more yellow. I run out of lemon yellow again. Oh my goodness. I have to squeeze out a lot more of this paint than I thought. It goes quite fast. So let me try that with more yellow. So this color, this is again a 3-mix color, but with more yellow and red and less blue. This is more of a kind of yellow ochre kind of color. So compare that to this yellow ochre. This is a lot more transparent and vibrant. So actually I would probably just mix my own yellow ochre versus using this one. You could probably also mix a burnt sienna if you just mix a little bit more blue just to tone it down, and a little bit more red to give it kind of that reddish undertone. Maybe a little bit more yellow. You could probably mix something similar to a burnt sienna here, but maybe I'm like, it's gonna take forever. I don't know, let's see what this looks like. Yeah, this is like a more burnt sienna or deeper brown kind of color. That's very nice. If we put even more blue in there, we can keep doing this all day long, but I just love making mixes. It really helps to kind of develop watercolor skills and to understand, you know, what your colors can do, what the colors you have can do. And that's a really nice brown. So that's not bad. That's amazing for such an affordable brand. So now we're gonna do some warm mixes really quick. Maybe I'll speed that up so this video doesn't take forever. And all right, we're back. So what I actually ended up doing was I decided to just finish up all the mixes in the interest of time, because this video was running a little bit longer than I wanted. And when I attempted to actually videotape this, I videotaped it in portrait mode instead of landscape mode. So that didn't work very well. So what I ended up doing here was I finished all the warm mixes, which actually came out gorgeous. Look at that orange right there. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous orange. Look at this. It's like a fire orange. We mixed some beautiful greens, like a sappy green over here. We have like a maroon kind of color, a more like indigo blue. We have really nice variety of neutrals and kind of a more of an ochre kind of color, and kind of more grayish tones. So that's great. I also tried to mix a slightly warmer version of the blue by just taking this, going back to the cool mixes here. I took the Prussian Blue and I put just a tiny little bit of the carmine to like make it a bit more like an ultramarine, I guess I wanted to try. But yeah, it came out more of a indigo-ish, but I mean, it can be used as a more warm blue, so that's not terrible. And then what I did was I tried to mix some grays. So some grays using your traditional kind of opposites, using burnt sienna and blue, which is very, very common. Maybe I put a little bit too much burnt sienna here, so it's a little bit more brown than blue, but you can see how you can get a nice gray here. I used a purple, which is this one here, which was labeled as ultramarine blue, if you remember, but it's actually more closer to a dioxazine violet. I used that and lemon yellow to mix this one. Very nice neutral gray. And I used the Viridian green and the vermilion to mix this gray color here. So you can get a nice range of grays. I also did a wet on wet test, which basically I just laid out wet water, just plain water, and dropped little drops of color. I used the carmine, the Prussian blue, and the kind of violet color to see how they move around in the water. And then I tried to see how it blooms. So this is basically a mass tone of the Prussian blue, where I dropped drops of clean water to see, and you can get actually a pretty nice bloom there. And actually I used this technique to create a Christmas card, which I'll show you in a second. And it turned out really nice. So as you can see, I mean, these are beautiful mixes. They're clean. None of them got muddy. They're vibrant. Even when we mix 3 colors, they're quite clean and just transparent. So that's great, especially for the price. It's just amazing. And I wanted to compare them quickly to other student grade watercolors out there, just to give an idea of how they stack up. So this is my watercolor swatch book. I have all kinds of swatches here from all the paints that I have. The paints that I first thought about comparing these two were the Wreath watercolor paints. So these are very popular paints. They're sold everywhere where arts and crafts are sold. They're sold at Michael's and Walmart and everywhere. They're not that great. I don't like them. They're very muddy. They get very muddy. So if you look at the mixes here, they're quite muddy, not very vibrant, and quite frustrating to use. They do move around wet on wet. The phthalo blue and the magenta move around pretty nicely. If you look at the Sargent art wet on wet, they don't move around as much. That can be fixed with a little bit of oxgal in your water. But yeah, I think the Sargent art ones look a lot better. They're a lot more vibrant. Look at the lemon yellow for Wreath. Sorry, here. The lemon yellow for Wreath is very, just not, kind of dirty looking almost. The Sargent art yellow is very vibrant and pretty. So the Wreath has a nice magenta though. That's my favorite color for the Wreath. And they have a nice phthalo blue. The burnt sienna is quite insipid. And the ultramarine is a bit insipid too. But at least they have ultramarine, right? We don't have one here. But yeah, I think the Sargent art is much better than Wreath's. If you're going to spend, I mean, this is $3.99. The Wreath's tube sets are close to $5, I think, for about the same size. So definitely much better purchase to get the Sargent art. And then here we have a different brand. This is Prang. This is the oval kind of pan watercolor. Also very good for the price. You can get these for between like $3-5 in most places. And they have an amazing black, which is a lot darker than the Sargent art black. But the Sargent art black is pretty good for, sorry, I just got some water in there, for black watercolor. You can probably layer this and it will be a lot darker, which actually, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take a little bit of the black and just layer it. This is the Sargent art again. And look at that. That's really nice and dark. So, I mean, I didn't do a test for layering or like for these, but I can show you some cards that I painted where you can see the layering. So again, I think they're slightly better than the Prang. The Prang have a bit of I don't know, like a shininess to them when they dry. If you put too much, it looks kind of plasticky, and they're not super vibrant. So I feel like the Sargent art look more like a traditional watercolor, and they don't have that shininess. And they are more vibrant. This is the Sakura Koi watercolor box. They're very comparable to the Sargent art. Very, very comparable in terms of opacity, because Sakura Koi is slightly opaque. And the Sargent art ones I would say, are about the same, have the same opacity as the Sakura Koi. The Prussian Blue, very similar. And Lemon Jello, Sargent art is a little bit more opaque. The Warm Yellow, this is Chrome, this is Permanent Yellow Deep, and Aureoline, I don't know how you pronounce that. Sargent art is slightly more opaque. Let's look at the Yellow Ochre, which usually tends to be very opaque. This is the Yellow Ochre, very similar, very similar. So, I mean, they're quite similar, slightly more opaque, but if you thin them out with water, they do just fine. These are the Prima watercolors. Again, also very comparable to the Sargent art. I mean, Prima is very pigmented and beautiful. I really like the Primas for sketching. And you can see this kind of yellow ochre color, very similar. This is the Tropicals and the Decadent Pies that I swatched together here, which are the warmer colors. So I don't have a lemon yellow in this set. But yeah, I mean, here I would say the brown ones in Prima are nicer. They have more depth and more vibrancy than, for example, the Burnt Sienna and the Sargent art, which is a little flat. The Viridian is also a little flat. So this is like what I would compare Viridian to, the number 18 in the Tropicals Prima watercolor. It's a lot more vibrant and pretty for Prima than for Sargent art. Van Gogh watercolors is also a student brand. Again, very, very comparable. Look at this lemon yellow and the chrome yellow compared to like the Azo Yellow Deep. Very comparable in terms of vibrancy, opacity, pigmentation, and the yellow ochre as well. So again, if you use the Primary Colors, the split primary palette for the Sargent art to just do your mixes, you can basically paint anything. It's quite great. Oh, I actually got a little bit of a stain over there. Oh, I'll clean that later. And then in terms of this purple that we got, the mystery purple that was labeled as ultramarine blue, but I left it blank because it's definitely not ultramarine blue. And I was telling you that I thought it was a dioxazine violet. And it's actually, if you compare, this is Turner Artist Watercolors. Also bought these at Jerry's. Look at that violet and that violet. Very, very similar. Obviously the artist grade one is a bit more, it's more pigmented and a little nicer than the Sargent art, but based on the price, I mean, the Turner Artist Watercolors was $20 for 12 tubes of 5 milliliters. These are 12 tubes of 12 milliliters, again, for $3.99. So, and if you buy them on Amazon, it's probably $5, but still, very good. So that's a comparison to some of the other brands that I thought were comparable to Sargent art. And now I wanted to show you some watercolor cards that I made with these last night, because I've been kind of playing around with these today and yesterday and today. It's about that time of the year, so I've been painting watercolor cards, and I've been watching YouTube videos of other channels related to watercolor and crafting, and I kind of copied them from the YouTube videos, so I do not take credit for the design of these cards. Maybe this one, but not these two, as they're from other channels, and I can't remember the names of the channels because there's so many channels that I follow. But They're beautiful. I think this was my very small art actually, and this one I can't honestly remember. So if I remember it, I'll post it in the comment section of this video. As I mentioned when I was swatching out the wet on wet, I used this technique of kind of blooming to create this watercolor card. This is basically mass tone of that Prussian blue, and then I dropped clean water on that mass tone while it was still wet, and I created this watercolor card. The calligraphy was basically traced out using an iPad from a different card. So I can show you that in a separate video because I'm not that great at calligraphy. So I basically trace it out, and I used this Pentel, I think this is a Pentel brush, ink, like water brush with ink. I bought it in Japan, and it's all in Japanese. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I think it is a Pentel brush. So I used that to make this. And you can make some pretty beautiful things with these paints. This is a wreath, and I want to compare this to another wreath that I made using Van Gogh watercolors. So this wreath that I made here was made using Van Gogh watercolors, the student grade, and this one was made using the Sargent art. I mean, they're quite comparable. And the Van Gogh, which is this one on the right, actually that set was a large set, 18 pans. I actually bought it in Spain, and it cost about 45 euros. That's over $50. And they're half pans. So again, for $3.99, you can get a very similar effect. The colors are a little different because the colors in the set are slightly different, but the quality of it looks very, very comparable. Again, I don't know what the light fastness is on these, so I would use this to make craft projects or sketching or things that won't hang on a wall. But overall, I would recommend these watercolors. And if you can find them, I've seen them on Amazon for about $5. And if you're in New York for any reason, they have them at Jack's close to Penn Station for $3.99. So I hope you enjoy this review. And if you would like to see any other reviews of any other products, let me know in the comments below. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.